One.
What's going on, Oasis?
Man, hope you're doing well in this great element of actual fall. Enjoy it while it's still here,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's the way it goes. Man, it's great to just be in this moment of just hitting into these are my favorite months. It is the burr months. I hate being cold, but I do like the enjoyment of what comes with these months.
yeah, for sure.
Just connection and people, a little bit of downtime and not a whole lot of pressure, at least for the most part.
Yeah. I don't love being cold at all, but
Yeah.
man, that's a good call. I don't know that I've really paid attention to it, but fall is, I don't know. It's gathering time, isn't it?
It is it's homey, and you just want to connect and my startup is all right, it's meat and cheese season. So it's
Right.
there's the little pack, it's $8 pack charcuterie board meats from Walmart, and
Yeah.
man,
You just sit there and pick.
yeah,
Golly,
dude, add some cheese to it.
That's funny, man. I had not even kind of thought about that. I've thought about the angst month, which February? February's horrible.
Yeah, there's nothing to push you through that.
No, there's really not. I mean, Valentine's is not good enough to get me excited about it. It's cold, it's windy.
Yeah,
It's cold and it's windy.
you're
There's
gonna go
nothing
to a
to
restaurant
do. Yeah.
that you really enjoy once, and
And I'm outside people, man. And that's anyway.
yeah,
So for my side of things, for those of you who are listening, before I get started, what is not going to happen? I have no intention of rehashing what Bradley talked about yesterday, but I am going to start with those verses. And part of it is, part of it. Well, I can't rehash it. I killed it. I was good yesterday.
it was.
And I don't know where exactly it's coming from. Certainly from the Lord and just inspiration, just where His heart is. But that was just good. I just needed to hear it, and I think there was a lot of other people that just needed to hear what needed to be said about friendship. And certainly as the youth guy, as Bradley was talking, all I could think of was I'm looking at teenagers and I'm like, you need to listen and you need to listen. But the reality is all of us need to listen to it.
Yeah.
We struggle in a lot of different ways. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this passage from Galatians and really just a bit and a piece of it. And then I saw somebody actually, some comments on the Facebooks of somebody who had a legitimate point that just hit a chord with me because it's also me. So Galatians chapter 6, we're just going to read verse 2, and we'll just go from there. And so it says, bear one another's burden and so fulfill the law of Christ. So bear one another's burden. We can break that down into a billion different ways. Again, actually, we can't break it down a billion. It really only goes two ways. And Bradley was, God, man, he just hit it. But one of the things that goes in there is bear one another. Therein lies the problem. Okay.
One another's bearing down.
Yeah. And we can finish out and so fulfill the law of Christ. We can get into we'll get into that here in just a moment, but this bear one another, this indicates a two-way street, and that is problematic. And the reason it's problematic, I think that it is a responsibility certainly to each other, and everything that goes into it. Again, Bradley fleshed that out really, really well. My problem, and the more I thought about it even last night, and then I was reading some comments earlier from some folks who actually watch this, that the problem isn't bearing other people's burdens. It's sharing our burdens that is really problematic. And the more I was even thinking about that, it's truth. And I think it's a good intention, to be honest with you. I think it's good intentions that we don't want to share our burdens on other people, because everybody is busy. Amarillo National Bank, they tell their tellers, or they used to anyway, to not say no problem. So if you come up to me with an issue or whatever, and you say thank you, no problem. It was a problem. You're welcome is the correct answer. But
Sure.
And here's the thing is we don't want to overwhelm somebody else with our problems because we know they're as busy as we are. You know, everybody has issues just the same as we have issues. You know, and of course, social media, it's posted all over the place. My dog died and my car's tires flat and this, that, and another. And we'll post about all of that. And so by the time it actually gets out there, I don't want to share a burden with you because I know you've already had the worst day of your life. But the problem that goes along with that is that I think, again, it's good intentions. We don't want to overburden somebody. But then there's also a little bit of the pride of we don't want to be vulnerable, overly vulnerable.
Yeah.
Man, there's a certain amount of trust and faith that goes into that. And I totally understand that. But there's also a level of humility that we must have with each other. And so in the book of Genesis, we have, what is it, sixth day? It's the sixth day that God creates Adam. And then at the end of the sixth day, or 7, he refers to it as he saw it, and it was very good, right? So Adam was very good, right? It was he looked at his creation, he looked at his human there, and he was like, it's good. Fast forward to the next chapter, chapter 2, God looks at Adam and says, but it's not good for him to be alone. The instant he made that statement, to me, as I'm reading that, the instant he made that statement, he showed that he favored community. It was better for those two, for there to be a community there. And so, certainly, Eve comes on the scene, and we all know that story and everything that goes into it. But I think that we were created to be interdependent on each other. So in other words, we're in this together, the community. And so that burden that we're willing to receive from someone else, probably they're willing to receive from us as well. And one of the things that I was really thinking about is like why I don't do that, and also the repercussion of it, why I don't share my burdens with other people. And I'm a prideful dude, man. And also, I don't ask for help because I don't want to burden somebody else. My struggles are my struggles, and some of them are stupid. And I don't want to slow somebody down on it. But then at the same time, if I'm struggling and I'm struggling alone, how is that ever going to get fixed? You know, just hunker down, right? We're just going to hunker down. And we're just going to, stay up until 2 a.m. with indigestion and you're going to solve all the world's problems? It's not. You are going to go to bed late and wake up exhausted, and you're going to start the process again tomorrow because you're already at a deficit, right? Whereas this idea of community and this idea of bearing one another's burdens, man, it's clearly it's in the Bible, so it's clearly a biblical notion. But I think it goes also to Christ, where He tells us, and I wrote this down. I'm gonna have to find it here in a second, but when He talks about like you. Yeah, there it is right there. A new commandment I give you. This is out of John chapter 13. It says, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I loved you, you are to love one another. It's an investment. Loving one another is an investment into somebody else, right? And we're going to have to understand that. And we, at some point, by not sharing our burdens with other people, there's a possibility that we're pulling our blessing or that person's blessing from them. Like we're taking away their their ability to invest into us, to love on us, and that's just not our job. Our job is to do life together, to give everybody opportunities to love one another, for us to love each other, to pour into each other. And here's this reality. The burden that we share with each other, why is it important? Because it draws us together. Because I think that's what the church does, man. I for some reason, I can't tell you why. Maybe it's because we're from West Texas. If it's because we're Americans, just because we're just prideful fools. I don't know. But we stop doing that. And so we run up these fences and we run up these walls, and we're not investing in each other. It's not true, honest relationship that goes into it. But man, that's what the church needs. It needs struggle. It needs us to be invested in each other's lives. We need to know that the other one's tire is flat. And is it a burden on us to come pick you up? Yeah. But I was willing to do it. And so if we're willing to do that to somebody else, we got to be willing to let that come back to us. And is it comfortable? No, but that was never the question. It was, look, we all need to be running it at the best we can. And so there's a certain amount of this that is bear one another's burden, this two-way street, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Christ being willing to bear our burdens. He didn't have to. Let's just get that out of the way. He did not have to. But he did. He came and he loves us accordingly. And so I think inside of that, as we look at each other, how do we share each other's burdens? I think it's just actually when somebody, how are you doing? Tell them. Don't get me wrong. There's a fine line between griping and look, here's my burden. I think griping is just like, well, I have a hangnail and it just won't go away, and my day is irritated, etc. You know, it's those silly little trivial things that you're just never happy. But man, a burden is a burden, and let's just share it. The solution to your burden may be sitting right there in front of you, and you never asked, you never knew, and you never shared. And this is truly pot calling the kettle black. I hate doing that. But the reality is I need my community more than I'd admit, but I need my community.
Yeah.
That was a lot of rambling. It just kind of dawned on me.
Yeah, but it was...
Sorry about that. That's your burden.
I think, but it's the picture of unity, and of yes, Jesus didn't have to do it, and I think it's even for us, of us identifying where we don't have to do it, but when we choose to, and that's, we open the door for growth and opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good way.
And that's,
I'm glad you cleaned that up.
No, that's just me looking at it and going, yeah, that's a door of opportunity. It's there, and just looking at how God's built us, He's unified us, and there's still in the same topic of the body of Christ. And I was reading through Ezekiel 40 and 41, and these chapters where I'm just going to put this in there, that this might offend you, but your average day Christian, I'm just going to say it out there, those who don't read the Bible more than once a week, let's just say that element.
Church on Sunday.
Church on Sunday, yeah. You've read the Bible, and that once a week is when you were at church, and maybe you opened it later on. But this is that hardship of, okay, why is Ezekiel telling us the measurements of the temple? Why is this angel going around and identifying all these elements? And there's this picture of the temple, this vision that Ezekiel is given, and it's in comparison to chapter 8, where God says, hey, Ezekiel, look what they're doing. They're defiling my temple. And now he has another vision. This is later on, but God restoring the temple. And I couldn't help but notice that one commentator wrote that there are certain things that we would just brush over, like, oh, were there 8 steps? Were there 6 steps? That meant something to them. If there were 7 steps, 7 being the perfect number, the number of completion that we see in Scripture. And that was the first area. But when it got into the next area, it was 8 steps. And then when we got to the next area, it was 10 steps. And all these measurements and all these things, one commentator kind of put it really to this point of each doorway, as you go into the temple, each doorway gets more narrow. And he put it in these words of almost as though to limit man's ability, because it's them shedding of themselves and relying on God of it being more holy. The further you go, being it more holy. And I had a hard time, not a hard time, but really just a connection of Pastor Brad, what you started off of, how many friends do you have? And man, as you get older, man, that group, let's be honest, it gets smaller and smaller because they died, or it gets smaller and smaller because you're more intentional. You have people who you have time for because of what you're doing, or that you need to have time for because of the encouragement they bring to you. And looking at our body, what we do with it, and Paul wrote that in our body, it is a temple. And so what comes into it, the deeper we go, man, that vulnerability, it's narrow, but it's not closed off. And therefore, it's not just putting your business out in the street of posting all the things that are wrong with your life or what's going wrong with your day on social media for all to see, but it's the reality of like, okay, I need to share this. This is something I need to bring others into. And so my challenge, my question is, what are you doing with the friendships of your temple? What are you doing with the friendships that is your body and your life that you're leading? Because God tells us He gives us everything that we need in order to live a glorifying life to Him. A couple verses in Proverbs that I just wanted to identify. Proverbs 11:25 says, "Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and the one who waters will himself be watered." That word enriched, you could almost take that word out and it being smeared, but it's smeared in a ceremonial sense. When they poured oil to anoint people back then, they poured it all over their head so it would drip all the way down. That would just go down both sides. They start at the head, so the head at that point, man, it just kind of engulfs the individual, especially particularly the priests of saying, let it drip down onto their clothing. And so this whole area of it being enriched was almost to the point of, when I looked into that word of it being as it's smeared, but now you have the capacity to do something good with it. You have the ability. It's been given to you enrichedly, whereas you have way more than you need. And also standing on the premise of, as that verse continues, says, and he who waters will himself be watered. It's not that you're relying on, like, well, I can only help you so much, otherwise I'm going to run out. But it's us realizing that God says, no, be a blessing. Be a blessing as I am a blessing to you. And this hardship of it, of realizing this life that we live, it's the righteousness. It's us cleansing our life and focusing our life and washing our life with the good deeds that God calls us to do, but really that building up the relationship that we have with Him. A couple verses down in verse 30, it says, "The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and whoever captures souls is wise." This capturing of souls is simply those who, man, that you're blowing the horn of warning for those to make sure that their life is saved, that Jesus is known to them. And so in this whole reality of the fruit of righteousness is a tree of life, man, let us be a tree. Let us be the branch that Jesus says that we are. It's not that we're the glamorous fruit, man. We're not. We are the fruit to someone else. But man, we are all, once we realize we have accepted Jesus, and we're just a branch. We're a branch that is really, I would say just a branch. It's the pass-through of the nutrients that produces the fruit. And so, man, as you're going into this season of, man, as we were talking earlier, of hunkering down and really kind of connecting with others, let it be a moment in time where you can truly be that light for someone else, but also be the bearer of someone else, so that their needs need to be taken care of. They need to be helped, and they need to be rejuvenated through just merely the life that we've given.
Yeah. And I think that it's time for our society to just being transparent and being honest, and it's time to start maybe doing life with each other again.
Yeah.
And that is bearing each other's burdens, and that is looking at. I love what you said. I think it's probably more accurate. The older that you get, no, I don't know. Certainly people pass away, but it is more intentional. If I'm going to spend my time with people, I want like time, living room time, sitting on the front porch time. It's with individuals that matter. I've found myself more and more lately that, man, I want conversations that reveal something. And I don't know that. I'm not saying that I'm old or not. It's just, it matters. It matters more. And those people, talk about a door. that is increasingly getting smaller, there's less that gets through those doors. You're moving less and less stuff through it.
Yeah.
And so inside of that, I think it's time for us to maybe invest and invest in honest relationships, and that is truly bearing each other's burdens. It's you get mine and I get yours, and here we go.
Yeah.
That's just, I think that's how community is. I think that's what God intended, was that level of honesty that goes into it. So, and transparency. That's my bit. I can go for days on this. So, guys, thank you as always for joining us, and look forward to what the Lord is going to do through this series, whatever Brad's doing, and it's just a cool time of year.
It is.
So just look forward to seeing everyone, and love you guys. We'll catch you later.